idea is the people you surround yourself with who also want to go far and make it. Because I think you can, you guys push each other. Whether sometimes you intentionally do it, and sometimes you're just studying, and someone you didn't even know someone was watching you, and they're like, man, I was gonna go home. I didn't feel like it, but I saw you grind, and I'm like, you know what? I should probably grind too.
Really got on Rex, ain't playing around. When I go get it, stop playing around. Really got on Rex, ain't playing around. Black man, white coat, shit, we up right now, yeah. You gotta set you a goal. You gotta accomplish your.
What's the craziest thing you've seen in medicine?
Yeah, so this is tough for me as a emergency medicine doctor because I get that question a lot, and I think that you see so many things that it just becomes like another day. So I can just tell you something I saw, a few days ago that was pretty crazy. Pretty young guy. He had a brain mass that was found, and it literally within he was actually flew from California, was coming to come to see us, and within minutes, he just started deteriorating, and we had to do everything we could to save his life. And it's just to see how you go from one moment of being okay to just we're throwing everything at you to keep you alive, and just so quickly. That was definitely eye-opening, and made me thankful for the opportunity I have in emergency medicine.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate life, man. That's crazy. How old was he?
This guy's in his 30s.
Oh, wow. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, all right. Hey, what is up, fam? It's Dr. Dale, and this is the Black Men and White Coats podcast. Man, I'm super excited about today's guest, man. We're going to hear a lot of great stuff. He just kind of spilled the beans, told you he's an ER doc, right? But we're going to get into that some more here and tell you all about Dr. Darnell Gordon's story, right? Phenomenal guy, a phenomenal physician. I was skimming his Instagram just now. The guy likes to have fun, get down and stuff like that. So, hey, before we dive into the story, though, I do want to tell you guys a few things, right? So first of all, remember, if you haven't seen the Black Men and White Coats documentary, what are you doing? Go watch the documentary. At the time of this recording, you can watch it for free at members.bmwcevents.com, members.bmwcevents.com. A lot of you guys who've been rocking with us for a long time know we've had diversemedicine.com. We're probably taking that down right about now. Okay, that site's been up for, goodness gracious, years, maybe almost 10 years by now. And we had the app for diversemedicine.com. It was our mentoring platform, etc. But what we're going to do is start working on getting this Black Men and White Coats app, right? So just relaunch the app, okay? So check it out, Black Men and White Coats. It's in the Apple store right now at the time of this recording. By the time you guys hear it, it might be in the Android store too. So go check it out for the app. Connect with me, Dr. Gordon. I'm going to get you on this app, right? We got to get you on this app. Brand new, but if you want to connect with Dr. Gordon, we'll get him on the app too, all right? And pretty much the reason we started this app is because we have all these summits across the country. Well, we've had the app forever. We're just rebranding and changing, switching stuff over, right? We're kind of rebooting it. But really, because all these summits across the country, people are like, hey, how do we keep up with Black Men and White Coats? So instead of doing the diversemedicine.com app and everything we've had for years, we're going to shut that down and relaunch it with the Black Men and White Coats app, all right? And Dr. Gordon just said he's going to get on it. So y'all get on there and ask Dr. Gordon whatever questions y'all got for him, all right? So, hey, let's dive into the story. All right, I want to start, Dr. Gordon. This is going to be the first question right here, okay? When you first got that long white coat, right? You're not in the short coat no more. You're in the long white coat. What was your welcome to being a real doctor, welcome to long white coat medicine moment?
Yeah, I would say it was my first shift. I got there, you have your gear on, you're feeling good. And then it's just like, people are like, hey, Dr. Gordon, what do you want to order for this? And then you're getting another message from another nurse, and you're just like, it's kind of me having to make these decisions. And so it was definitely overwhelming at first, but just kind of, as you go through, get used to it. But
yeah, and then you realize, like,
used to it, to be honest.
Oh yeah, you realize that you're making decisions and that it's your name. Like, kind of the buck stops there. It's not like, hey, I need somebody to sign off. Like, no, you made it. It's your name on that line, right? That's crazy. Exactly. So let's dive right into this. Let's go back to when you were an itty bitty child, right? Medicine. What was it that led you to say, hey, you know what? I want to be a medical, not even an ER doctor, but I want to be a medical doctor. What was that moment for you that said, I want to be a doctor?
Yes. So I always say I got tricked. So basically, this was back in college. I was, at the time, I was a computer science major. My dad did this IT work, and I basically felt like it was a good job, good lifestyle, and just something I more chose. And my family's Caribbean, big up Jamaica, Guyana. And yeah, so my professor at the time, he was Trinidadian, and I'm from Maryland, but I was in Alabama for school at Oakwood
Mhm.
University. And he basically was like, "Hey, I know the cafeteria food isn't great. Come over to the house." He invited the whole class, come over, curry, roti. Didn't hear anything he said after
Oh,
that.
wow.
Trinidadian man making curry and roti. It's gonna be solid. So I said, "All right, I'm there." But he didn't mention that it was a interest meeting for a mission group called the National Association for the Prevention of Starvation. So conveniently left that out. Anyways, we got there. The food was good. I didn't drive at the time, or I didn't have my own car, I should say. So I was stuck. So I said, you know what? I'm here for a reason. Let me see what they at least have to say. And I was really blown away because I had never seen so many young people so passionate about service. Not, oh, this is just to check off my resume CV. Not, oh, I may have grew up in a church or just grew up in something, so I'm doing it. This is like this is something they want to do for themselves. He said, you know what? I'm gonna go out with one of their missions, or go out with them one time. If I don't like it, I'm gonna just keep going on with life. It was a good time, but wasn't for me. And we ended up going out with a black woman physician. We went to basically on a medical mobile unit to this low income area to provide free care. And when we first got there, you can tell on their face there was like a little bit of apprehension, or like, what are these people really here for, things like that. But the moment, I mean, as we continued to give care, we did programs for the kids. And just as we were there, we just saw their faces turn to just so thankful that we had come all that way to help them. And it just was a moment for me. It's like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to serve, these kinds of communities, or help these communities through medicine. And I changed my major to biology that next day, and the rest is history.
Man, so that's really interesting, and for a couple of reasons to me. You know, most people we have on this podcast, I would say, decided medicine at a young age. I'm thinking about Ellis Ingram, who released his episode, last week, or a couple weeks ago, I don't know. And he talks about how, he got a microscope when he was like, 8 years old or 10 years old or something like that. Most people we've had on this podcast say, I want to be a doctor since I was little. You're probably one of the few that said it happened to you in college, which is interesting. But at the same time, when I'm thinking about it, that's the whole reason Black men and white coats exist, right? Is this idea of let's get exposure to the youth while they're young before they hit like this college level. So throughout your entire childhood, had you had exposure to young black, I mean, and not young black men, but throughout your entire childhood, had you had exposure to black doctors?
Not that I could explicitly remember, to be honest. I mean, I did grow up in the DMV, so in general, there's a lot more black professionals, and a lot educated um, black professionals. So I probably did, but it's like nothing that really stuck out to me that I can say, yeah, I remember that moment.
So that's fascinating. So then the first time you remember having a close encounter with a doctor was at this mission trip, and
Yeah,
then just that one encounter made you say, I want to be a
yeah,
doctor.
yep, one time.
That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. I got into this discussion the other day. I was with a guy who trains my kids, like,
Hmm.
physical stuff. And he was talking about just that idea about, the same thing we always hear about people want to go into sports. But he was telling me for his son, he was like, man, I need my son to come out to one of your summits next year, because just that one exposure might be the thing that changes
Yep.
their life. Right. And you're the exact example of that exact thing. Right.
Just one
That's crazy.
time.
So have you gone back and talked to this professor, and like what has the relationship been, with that professor who tricked you into becoming a doctor?
Ah, the good Dr. Paul. So basically, I actually continued with that. So I didn't finish the story, I guess, but I did. I didn't stop there after that one mission. I actually continued with the organization. So I continued to work very closely with Dr. Paul, who's the leader, and other leaders in the organization, doing work. So we would do community service work, feeding the homeless, doing work at going into the community, doing programs for kids on like healthy eating, things about like school education, things like that. Also, we would go to juvenile detention centers, also raising money for overseas missions so we can do medical missions. I was able to go to multiple different countries doing that. So I stayed with that organization for a while and had a good, and had a good relationship with that professor now, and we laugh about it now. But I still believe I got tricked. I do.
Hey,
It
we'll take the
it
trick,
wasn't
man. We
it
got
wasn't
one.
the full story, but it
Hey,
worked out. It all worked out. So
we'll take it, man. We got another doctor out of it, so we're good with it. Um, so let me ask you this. We talk about, I'm gonna kind of just jumping around just because it's fitting to what you're talking about here.
yeah.
We talk about this idea of some black men, not even black, some people from under resourced communities not being able to make it in healthcare due to lack of resources, whether it's
Mhm.
poor education or whatever crime, whatever. What is your perspective on the lack of resources for our young black boys and girls who might want to go into medicine? Because you might have a more unique perspective, right? Because you served in these areas probably more than
Mhm.
most of us have, and you've been to juvenile detention services. What is your thought on how that can impact if somebody makes it in healthcare or not?
I think it can make a huge difference. And what I've seen is that these kids are just like any other kids. They're eager. They soak up everything. They're eager to learn. They're interested, and they just need the exposure. And when you give them those resources, so you give them a purpose, or in the sense that you say, hey, or a goal or something to work towards, and you encourage them, you let them know their value, their worth, and you show them that, hey, these are things you can do, and you'll be surprised at the interest that's there, that a lot of times they just don't think that it's something that they could do, or that they don't have the aspirations to do, because they're being told, or they're not constantly being told that they're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or anything like that. It's you have a limited, am I going to make it to the NBA, NFL? Am I going to be a rapper? Am I going to do these? Like, it's very or am I going to just like just find a job and just work somewhere? It doesn't. There's not a lot of, okay, I can do other things outside of that as well. And when you come and you give them those resources and, like you said, exposure, um, it makes a world of difference. And we see it all the time with these mentorship pipeline programs, who, a lot of times, a lot of them start pretty young, and you can see the continuity of, man, we met this kid at, maybe middle school or whatever, and now look at them, in medical school or this way, because someone decided to, hey, give them the resources that other people didn't give them, or they never had a chance to get themselves.
Yeah, that's huge. And people would ask me, because we do these summits across the country, right? And people always like, "Hey, Dr. Dale," and they ask a million questions. I'm like, "Man, I got that.
Yeah,
I got that answer. I got that answer." And the one
yeah,
question they would always ask me that I struggled with was the resource question. And like,
hmm
what about the kids that don't have resources? And I can never answer that question until here recently.
yeah,
And I said, well, you know what? The way to solve the resource issue, so say, hey, kid wants to go into medicine, but they don't have the resources to make it. The way you
yeah,
solve that issue is by knowing that kid wants to go into medicine at an early age.
yeah,
Because if you know they want to go into at an early age, you can start planning for the things that you're going to
yeah,
need. So the way you solve the resource question is by time, is you have to have enough time to
hmm
plan for it. But in order to do that, you
exactly,
have to have an idea that they might want to go into some profession from a young age. And
right.
that's where the conflict comes in.
And that kind
What
of goes back to the early exposure as well. Getting to that,
Mhm.
getting them exposure early enough, because I mean, medicine's not for everyone, but
Yeah.
those that it could be for, seeing it a lot earlier can start them on that journey to success.
Yeah. What kind of music do you listen to?
So I listen to a lot of dancehall, Afro beats, soca. I'd say that's like top three.
Do you do hip hop? Pretty much where I'm getting at is, well, are you following this? Are you following this Kendrick Lamar?
Kendrick, Drake,
Yeah.
Big
What's your
Ten.
take on that? What's your that has
Um,
nothing to do with medicine? You mentioned rap, so I just want to hear your take on that.
I think as a Drake fan, I think Drake is down bad as far as where we are right now in the head to head. I overall, I mean, I think it's entertaining. It's tough because it's like you have these people going against each other and saying these things that are negative to one to another. But I think we sometimes forget that rap music's entertainment, and it's something that sells and people are excited and they want to hear the next track. And I don't have any issues with it. But I would say the winner though right now would be Kendrick.
Yeah, and I think I mean I've been keeping up with his so whatever. But the stuff that I have heard, I think Kendrick started. I was like, you need to chill out, man. I think he started taking it a little too
Yeah,
far. Right?
yeah, yeah,
Let's chill out just a little bit.
yeah.
So tell me, what kind of kid were you? Right. So I'm talking 7, 8, 9 years old. What kind of kid were you?
So I was a kid that was always I was always happy, always smiling. I watched the little like the videos. In fact, I was watching a video clip the other day that my grandfather had showed me. But I was laughing, making jokes, always, just always trying to find something to do. Always dancing. That was one thing. I was on the dance floor at some point somewhere, or at some my family always had, in general, had a lot of we had a lot of family functions and parties and stuff like that. But that's what I was. I also really didn't get into a lot of trouble as far as like I followed the rules, but I also knew how to manipulate the rules. So it was kind of one of those things. Like
So what does that
technically you
mean?
didn't say, so like technically you didn't say this, so I'm not completely
You
wrong.
you were one of those kids. I know you were one of those kids, man. I'm dealing with
Yeah,
that in my own house right now. My middle son is like he's so creative and such like a he's so like
yeah,
mentally there, and he's that type of kid,
yeah.
man. Uh, but he's a great kid. I love him. I love all my kids. They're all great. Um, uh, in school academically, how'd you perform
Hmm.
academically?
So academically, I did well, and this is important thing to say. So I I did well, so I was like in honors classes and things of that nature. But I remember um, kids at my school would make fun of me for, and there's some specific like experience that I remember for, like, oh, you're a geek, or you're too smart, or, you're not, you think you're better, or things like that. So those things would kind of make me, even though I was smart enough and tested to be in honors classes, I didn't put as much effort into school because I felt that it wasn't as cool to do it. And so I definitely think like if I had a different mindset and things like that, or if, I guess it was definitely a lot of factors. And at the end of the day, I didn't do terrible, but I definitely feel that if my mindset was different, I knew that it was okay, or it was cool to be intelligent or things like that, then I could have even soared higher, to be honest.
Man, so let's talk about that. Why do you think kids do that to other kids? I hear this all the time, but I don't really take a deep dive into. Let's take a deep dive into that. Why
Yeah,
do and let's say race doesn't matter, but let's just say
yeah.
black kids or whatever. Why do
Hmm.
they do it to other kids?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's multifactorial. I think part of it might be jealousy in the sense of, when it comes to intelligence, anything. Someone may have a bite that they don't have, or something, a skill that they don't have. You kind of get jealous, or you want it, and so you kind of go from there. So I think that might be a component to it. I think there's an element of you're doing something that is goes against the grain. And I think as human, I think in general, it's a good mechanism or survival mechanism of creating a culture, doing, having a set order of things, right? And so when you kind of go against that order of, we're not, why are you doing this? You're not supposed to be doing that. It kind of sets a balance of like something's probably wrong with you because you're weird or you're different than what would be expected.
But that's the part that's so strange to me, right? Because everybody knows you're supposed to try to get good grades. Like, you go
Yeah.
to school, everybody's parents, I don't think anybody's parents is being like, don't get good grades. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
you go to school, your parents say get good grades. The teachers say study hard, get good grades. So the culture is trying to encourage people to get good grades. But I don't
Hmm.
know if it's is it one of those things? The jealousy thing makes sense. I mean, both everything you said makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking how fascinating it is that kids know the goal of school is to get good grades, and when they see somebody getting good grades, they try to bring them down.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like the same thing as like you're supposed to listen to your parents and not do anything bad. So it's like even though it is like the right thing to do, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the cool thing or the thing that is that people elevate. Because if it was something where the coolest kids or the people who got the most recognition, the most talked about, the most awards that, or the most like, hey, that's who I want to be, who gets lifted up, were people who were smart or did things academically. I think that you could may see a culture change, but I think it's not just, I think that is done in the school system, but there are factors outside of the school system as well, such as,
Yeah.
the home, and how, even though it can be mentioned like, hey, of course, no one is telling their kids to do bad in school, but are they doing the things at home to properly prioritize education? and then, like I said, there's so many factors because it's definitely tough to do that if you're a single parent. You're just trying to make enough so that the kids have, food and to eat in the morning and a place to stay. It's tough to, on top of that, say I'm going to monitor, make sure they did their reading, and make sure they're doing this, and so it's definitely, I think definitely that those socioeconomics parts play a role in it too.
That makes sense, man. That makes sense. Um, I think back to when I was in high school, like a lot of the kids I played basketball, not all of them, but a lot of the kids, we had like really good grades,
Hmm.
So for me, it was never, a lot of my friends didn't have good grades. I had friends some of them who you would call quote unquote troublemakers, good kids, just caught up in the wrong stuff. Um, but it's interesting. They never gave me issues about getting good grades. Um, but I was never one to be influenced either. So maybe that's why. All right, let me ask you
Yeah.
another current event question. I don't know if you're a basketball fan or not, but who you got winning the championship, NBA championship this year?
Mm. All right. As much as it pains me to say it, and I saw the turnaround, but I think I have Denver. Denver pulling it out and repeating. I
Mm.
am I'm a big LeBron James fan. So by default, I'm a Lakers fan currently. So I don't want Denver to win, and I hope they lose. But uh, the team they just show that you know they have that element of they're just too good. I mean, we saw them go down two and just blink, and they're just right back in the striking position.
Yeah.
You know, they're good. I don't know
No,
who can
nigga, I
really
gotta
beat
go.
them. We'll see. But I
Man,
have
I
Denver.
gotta go. I gotta go with Dallas. Just because I'm from
Okay.
Dallas, so I gotta go with Dallas, man. But I can't fault you for saying Denver. Obviously, Jokic, MVP, and all that stuff again. So I can't fault you for saying Denver, but I got to rock with Dallas on that. Um, so so what I'm trying to do. You see me? I'm trying to sprinkle that pop
Yeah.
culture in a little bit. Try to draw the kids in here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Trying to think how do you get the kids paid attention. Try to sprinkle
Yeah.
especially
Yeah. Something about
the
right now for him.
the
Big hold on, really quick
demographics.
on that note. I was gonna say
Yeah,
big. I gotta give a big ups to Anthony Edwards right now, playing out of his mind. Brunson. We got a lot of great talent right now that we're watching. So
Anthony Edwards is something else. Well, bro, you're right. Both of those two guys are something else. Oh, man, there's so much talent. Even Kyrie, I'm a
yeah,
Dookie, right? And Kyrie from
yeah,
Duke, like the skill level is so crazy. It's so
yeah,
crazy. You know, I don't. I grew up hooping and stuff like that, but doggone, man, the skill level is just on a different. It's completely different
yeah.
now. Doing things that we didn't even think about doing back in the day, man. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking about it. I need to start sprinkling some stuff in the demographics of who watches Black men and white coats. It's interesting. It's like mostly like 20s to 30-year-olds. It's that
Okay.
range. Which is great. It's fine because there's people there too trying all sorts of stuff. I mean, that's the majority, not all of them, but that's kind of where it starts to peak. And I'm like, man,
Yeah,
like a lot of stuff we're doing is trying to hit the kids. So I'm like, man, let me drop something in there so the kid might hear something they want to hear. Also,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But so when you were a kid, did your how strict or how forceful were your parents with education? I know Nigerian household. I'm Nigerian. Nigerian household don't play with
Yeah,
education.
yeah,
How are the Caribbean households?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's definitely the same thing. My parents weren't. I didn't grow up with my parents being together. So my dad was a lot more. Whenever I was at my dad's house, it was basically like, "Did you read? Read a book?" It was very much, very very strict. My mom, who I lived with, was more. As long as I'm doing well in school, I didn't need. She really wasn't. As long as you're doing what you need to do, she didn't really say much to me. But it wasn't like, "Oh, you need to. Why did you get a B or why did you get it, instead of an A?" That's where my uncles came in. So it was really, I would say, like
Mm.
it was a unit where my uncles will call me out on like I remember one time I had got what it's like all A's and like an A minus, and the uncle's like, "Why'd you get an A minus?" Like, I mean, I hear you, but it's still good. That was the first response. So I think it's just a combination of the village of everybody just did their part. Like my mom was definitely did her part in raising me and showing me a good example of and even when we get back, going back, touching back to the service part, I saw a lot of that in my mom. Very, very selfless, always serving other people, always trying to help other people. And, so she definitely did her part in raising me, but I think it was definitely a village, with the uncles, other people, my grandmother too. She was definitely relentless, and you know, and like education. And then I think with my family, one of the big things is having education. It really wasn't as much about the type or, if it was doctor versus this, is just having some sort of education, having something. And the principle really came down from, a lot of the elders in the family who are like, if you have education, you have something that no one can take away from you. You have something that I've done this, I know this, I've studied this, I have expertise in this area. And that's the big principle that was always pushed.
So that's fascinating too. So your parents never in like high school, they were never like, hey, consider medicine or nothing like that. It was just like, hey, just get your education, and whatever decisions you make based on that is good.
Yeah, exactly. I never got pushed to be a doctor or any specific field at all. But I definitely got pushed to go to college. College was a non-negotiable. Like getting a degree was, and like I had to get a degree. But
so what do you think? What do you think about college now? Because tuition prices are getting crazy, right? So I don't know where you're at, but if you have kids, or I don't know if you do or not, or if you decide to later on, when your kids get to that age, what are your thoughts around college there? Like, is that going to be a non-negotiable for you in your household? Like, you have to go to college?
No, it won't be. It won't be. For you, what is a non-negotiable is the mindset, and the mindset is you never want to get comfortable in where you are. Always try to grow. How can you be better? How can you do something? How can you be stable? Like, you don't want to be in a place where you're always having to beg someone for money or beg people for a place. Like, whether that's whatever you decide to avenue, in a respectable way, a legal way, I don't have an issue with it. I think that there's people who college is for, but then there's people who do a trade, and I think you can have a trade and be successful in a different way, or just be an entrepreneur in a certain way if it works. But I think that what I will say is it's part of that being that growth mindset, and is also being practical and realistic. So knowing that, hey, you're saying you want to do this, if it's not something that's commonly done, or easily done, not saying you can't do it. I won't support you, but you need to have a plan. Like, you need to have a plan of how this actionable plan, and taking time to reassess, is this working or is it not? So I don't think I'll be the person have to go to college, have to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, but definitely can't just be sitting at home and having no plan or no goal. Like, what are you working towards? Like, what do you want to do? Whatever that is, do something. Have a purpose.
Exactly. The great thing about like medicine is all planned out for you. Like, once you get in the door, excuse me, it's all planned out for you. That's a great thing. That's why you see success rates are relatively so high. Once you get in the door, you gotta get in the door first. Once you get in there. All right. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit now. College decision. Let's talk about that. What things went into, whenever you're applying to college, what things are you thinking about to make a decision? Because for most people on the podcast, they want to go to med school, so they're like, oh, I want to go to Xavier because it is, and it's, school. But for you, what were the things that were kind of going through your mind to make your decisions there?
Yeah. So I'll get to the most important part that kind of led me to where I decided at the end. But one of the things was I was thinking about money, right? I mean, as you talked about debt, college debt, I think a little bit, or alluded to, the costs. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about opportunities for money of resources. So where can I get money? Where can I get a scholarship? That was one of the big things, I think, initially. I was looking at scholarships. What are they offering me? That was one of the big things. And are they meeting the needs that I had? I think at that time, like I said, I wasn't caught up in a specific, like, I want to do medicine, I need to go to a place that has a certain program or this, but it was more so, what are they offering me? Then it was kind of the location. What are the benefits and pros and cons of it? So initially I was planning to go to Howard, and so Howard was right next to me. So family, I was around. I was in a location I was comfortable with, things like that. And those were the big things. But I think what ultimately is like an intangible. It's just that feel. I think it's important for you to go and visit the campus and see like the vibe that you get when you get there, and how it makes you feel. Are you at peace? Do you feel like this is where I need to be? And I did go to Howard's campus, and it's great. And I'm about to be, we'll probably get there, but I'm about to be an attending physician there, working in the ED. So full circle. So even though college wasn't for me, but ended up going to be working there. But the college I did go to, Oakwood University, it was when I was on the campus and I saw the feel of the campus, it just felt like this is where I needed to be. I think I liked the idea that everything was pretty. I like the small town, the small feel of it. I'm not really a big flashy person. I think just the idea of this hometown, these are going to be people who actually care, who are going to not mean less what 2000, we had like less than 2000 students, and it was the campus was beautiful. It was a place where I felt like I can be at peace and not be stressed by all the too much going around, and it just felt right at the time. So, and I think also being at a place that I felt wanted me, the Oakwood University did, they did what, I think that had qualified for a certain scholarship. They're like, no, we really want you to be here. If we got to give you more money, if we have to try to compete with other places, we will. And that interest definitely also, going to a place that you felt wanted you to be there, was also very, very big.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's huge. The money, I'm just gonna say the money stuff is important, man.
Yeah,
And for med school too, people be like, "Yeah, go where your heart is." I'm like, man, go where your heart is,
yeah,
but pay attention to that.
yeah,
Pay attention to that money.
absolutely, absolutely.
Because you're gonna have to figure that out on the back end. Let me ask you this: what was the most challenging thing for you in college? During your pre-med years or whatever. What was the most challenging thing you had to deal with, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I think the most challenging thing in college was just staying motivated and disciplined. And that was very big in future later success because you're just studying for test after test, then a final, then another test, then another semester, and you're just like, I don't I don't even want to study for this test anymore. And I think that was definitely challenging, especially, I mean, now it doesn't have as much of a hold on me, but I could be, at the time I could be watching an NBA game or NFL is on or something else. There's always a new show or something like I could be doing other things. Like, why do I want to sit and study? And what made it worse, which maybe I wouldn't say is a regret, but I just wish I knew at the time that I did not have to be a biology major to go into medicine. But being biology was very stressful on top of that. Just all the
So you
labs and all the things.
switched because at first you weren't biology when you came in, so you switched into
Yeah,
biology to
computer science. hmm Yeah, I switched to
okay.
biology. Um, and I don't know that I would have stayed computer science, but I mean, I have other interests like marketing or business or things that I probably like have legit interest in that I would, and I could have still taken those other classes. But being immersed in the bioculture, taking plant biology and molecular biology and genetics, and it was just like lab after lab, and it's just not only do I have a lot to do, but I have to really, really put in the work and discipline to study this because if not, I'm not going to do well. And so that was definitely challenging for sure.
Man,
And then
I
I think, oh, go ahead.
remember. I don't know if you guys had to do it, but I remember my senior year. So you come in, I was a biology major too. Senior year, they make you take this like biology test for like everything you've done. It was like a national test when I was in college,
Yeah.
and like in senior year, I'm like, man, I don't
Yep.
remember none of this. I don't know nothing about no plants. I don't need, like I'm like, I'm just trying to get to med
Man,
school, man.
man.
Yeah. And I don't remember none of it now. I don't remember. I don't remember organic chemistry. I don't remember any of that stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
So
I cut you off. Go ahead. Keep going.
no. Exactly. Listen, I feel you. And it was just like all these things that I have to learn about that I just didn't care about. So that was tough. But I think how I got through that one was keeping my purpose in mind. And I think it's important, and this is just a general principle, I think life principle is what helps you get through challenges or tough situations is getting back to why you want to do it in the first place. And I think for me, my personal passion of serving these communities and knowing that, hey, if I push through, I will be able to impact people in a way, being a physician in a very important way. And it's like, these are the things that will push me that, hey, I don't feel like studying, but man, if it means that I can do this and be able to impact even, one person or lives or people, the generation behind me, this makes it all worth it. And staying involved in having that balance, like definitely studying, but doing things outside of studying. For me at the time, I was very immersed in the mission work, like I had mentioned, but also like, basketball games, I play basketball or kind of things, finding other things outside to just get that break, because you do need peace to recover and things like that. But and then lastly, I would say your circle of friends. I think it's so important, and whether they're like, I think you can have different and friends. It depends on the definition of the term, but the idea is the people you surround yourself with who also want to go far and make it, because I think you can you guys push each other, whether sometimes you intentionally do it, and sometimes you're just studying and someone you didn't even know someone was watching you, and they're like, man, I was gonna go home, I didn't feel like it, but I saw you grinding, I'm like, you know what, I should probably grind too. And I think specifically I have a good friend, Tino, who matched orthopedics at Harvard, so big up to him. It's actually in his second year now, but I remember like we both, especially junior year, we're like, no, we both need to make it, we got to push each other, we're gonna make it. And just we didn't want to do it. And like, hey, did you study? You got that final coming up. Time to get on that grind. And I think having a combination of all those things, keeping the purpose in mind, surrounding yourself with people who also want to go where you need to go, and having that work-life balance, for that, doing things outside of your work to get back to recalibrate you and get you back some relaxation and rest. I think what helped me.
Fascinating. You talk about, when you're a kid, people are like, why you smart? Then when you get older, like when you're kids, like people like trying to pull you down,
Yeah.
but when you get older, everybody trying to lift each other up, like, hey, come on, we got to do it. It's just how that comes full circle.
Right.
All right. So the medical process, how was that? Like applying to med school, was it just apply once and done, MCAT issues, or how was your whole med school journey? And I'm fascinated to know for you specifically because you came into this med idea a little bit later than most of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I didn't really know, to be honest, first doctor in my family, they didn't really know much about the process. So it was tough. I felt like I was trying to navigate and figuring it out by myself. What helped me was one principle that I always have is never go to another stage in life without talking to someone who's done it before. So I would always talk to someone who was a year ahead of me, people who are like also in medicine, or people who are already residents, or people who are attendings, or all these things. So that definitely, getting some insight helped, but it was challenging. I didn't realize how important it was. I think at the time, how much I wouldn't say how important it was. I don't think that's fair. But I didn't realize how much I would have to put into MCAT preparation. And then everyone is different for sure. Some people, I met them in medical school and they're just, I call them brainiacs, but I mean, they just read something, see something once, they'll never forget it ever. And they just have brains like that. That's not my brain. So I had to put it, I didn't realize how much I had to put in for that MCAT. And I did not put in enough time, I think, in retrospect. So that was very disappointing. I did not do well on the MCAT as much as I'd like. And I was prepared to do it again. I wasn't going to quit. And I think that definitely stopped me from getting into a lot of places I applied to, because I still applied. But I ended up getting into Loma Linda. And I think what helped is their focus at the time was more finding students who aligned with their mission. And their mission was that whole person care, more than just treating them. You have diabetes, here's insulin. It's like, what other issues? Your mental, your physical, your spiritual, your whole body. How is that all affecting your health? And training physicians like that, and very big on global outreach and medical service. And I think them seeing that, how passionate I was about that, and the work that I did, show them that, hey, this is a student that we would want. And even though your MCAT score wasn't as good as it could have been, we see through your work ethic and where you are, we want to give you a chance. And they gave me, I got an opportunity. I got in. That's the only medical school I got into that year.
You only need one.
And so I was very fortunate for that. But I think, I have friends and other people who weren't as fortunate. They didn't do as well in MCAT. They just didn't get in. They didn't have that, weren't able to get that connection or experience like me. and they did different things such as like doing masters or post-backs or just retaking it and really putting in that work and getting in that next round. But yeah, it was definitely challenging. I think, not doing as well as I would want to, realizing how much I really wanted to get to being a doctor and feeling like everything was over. But I was happy for that opportunity, and that Loma Linda had a more holistic view of
Yeah,
accepting students.
yeah, I think it's important for the young listeners to realize like medicine isn't life. Um, like for me, it was at a point where I remember when I got in med school, I went out and I got a dog chain that had like a caduceus. Also, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a doctor. Yeah, dog gang fool. Like, it was like this whole thing about like repping for medicine and so into it. It's a passion
Yeah,
is what you do, and I do love the field. I love what I do, but
yeah,
it's not life. It's like if you don't get in,
yeah.
it's not life. I was listening to the basketball guy from back in this guy named Sebastian Telfair. I got caught up with a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of stuff drama
Hmm.
around them. I think it was my year. It might have been a year. It might have been a year after me in high school or something. Um, but I listened to him talking about how people get so caught up with basketball. It's like basketball is not life,
Yeah,
and it's the same thing for medicine. Medicine is not life. So kids don't get in, and sometimes I just see them, they look like just completely devastated. I'm like, man,
yeah,
keep it moving, do what you gotta do, and go apply the next year. You
yeah,
know, because you get in doesn't mean your life is over. I mean, like it's just you didn't get in. Like, hey, other thing Sebastian Telfair said that I thought was really astute. He was talking about this old player named Lenny Cook and saying, well, why didn't Lenny Cook make it? He was supposed to be so great. He was like, he didn't make it because there's only 400 spots. There's nothing wrong with him. Just 400 spots. Same thing
right,
for medicine. Like, why didn't you get in? You ain't get in because it's just not
right,
just wasn't enough spots. Like,
exactly.
like just keep it moving. The world's not coming to an end, man. Um,
Yeah,
Now, so why emergency medicine?
yeah. So that's a good question. For me, it started off first of all when I first started, I thought I was going to be a surgeon, and I was very dead set on I need to do surgery. I want to be a surgeon. This is the way that I'm going to be able to impact. I think a lot of that, and this kind of goes back to the importance of mentorship, right? And something I'm passionate about. A lot of my mentors were surgeons. The first doctor that I went and really shadowed was he was doing his orthopedic surgery rotation at John. He was a chief resident at the time, at chief resident at John Hopkins doing orthopedic surgery. I had met another guy who was doing surgery, who was another really good mentor to me. And so I think that definitely played a role of like, the people that have a lot of influence on me or that I look up to are doing this field. And then I did my surgery rotation, and I was like, and I had done all this research in surgery, and I told everybody I went to surgery, and I did it, and I just realized that, hey, I could be a surgeon. I think I could if I want to, but I don't think I have the passion I thought I did. And I realized that it's not easy. Nothing is, but what a lot of at least surgeons tell me is that when they're in the OR, when they're doing the procedure, it makes everything else worth it. Just the fact that they can do that procedure. And I just didn't feel, and like, yeah, it was cool stuff, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like anything that was like, man, if I could be home right now or do this, stay an extra 30 minutes to see this interesting thing, I'd probably be like, you know what? I'm going to go get some rest. I'll see y'all in the morning. And that's when I kind of realized, surgery wasn't for me. So then I just was like, man, what should I do? And I just, like I said, always what my blueprint has been of success is just going back to the basics, the foundation, what brought me here. And I sat down and I said, what am I passionate about? And I realized it was serving these social issues, these social economic issues, being on the front lines of, going out and serving and community based. And I realized, when I was looking at things like the emergency room is essentially that, you deal with people who have like mental health issues, you deal with all these things where that you're dealing, we deal with incarcerated patients that come in, all people who have drug addictions, things like that, and you're able to deal with all these things and provide and try to get resources, because of course it is annoying, and it can be annoying at times when you're like, oh, okay, why is this person back again? But then you start to implement things, okay, so that we don't have them, in order to, maybe they need some help. Maybe there's a gap in what we could be doing as a in medicine to bridge so that this person doesn't just have to come back to the emergency room. Maybe there's a resource or there's something that we can do to help them. And so I just appreciate that being able to be on the front line. I also think that I'm a person that I wouldn't say I get bored, but I just like to not know what's happening. I'm spontaneous. So I do think that just being in the ED, you never know what is going to happen, what the day is going to be. I mean, yesterday I was working, Mother's Day, and it's like chill day. And then next thing you know, the day's going crazy. It was like 0 in the lobby, no one's here, and things can just change in a moment. And I think that just being at a point where you feel ready to deal with whatever comes through the door, that is something that I take pride in, and something that brought me towards emergency medicine. And once again, to be, like I said, I think just to harp on the point of the influence and the power of influence that we have. A lot of my close friends in medical school are emergency medicine doctors. So two of my best friends now are emergency medicine doctors. And so I think definitely some influence of, getting more exposure, going back to exposure as well, getting exposure through them and seeing more about the field is something that helped too.
What would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Yeah. What would I tell my 15-year-old self? I would tell my 15-year-old self to just, don't get too caught up in what other people think. I think I've always been a person who was headstrong, and I did what I wanted to do. My family realized that early. I was going to do whatever I wanted to do. But I think even though I might have done what I wanted to do, just your mind can be affected by knowing that people may not agree with what you're doing, or you may feel that, you can get into your head about how you're living. And I just would say, just be, if you feel like you want to do something, just try it out. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to be yourself, be who you are. And if people accept it, great. That's wonderful. And if they don't, that's also okay too. And it doesn't take anything away from you. I think that's one thing I would definitely tell my younger self.
Love it. I love it. Love it. Any last, impactful, powerful message you will leave for the listener?
Yeah, I would just say that what I've learned through this journey is just everybody has their own path, and everybody, we all have our own path and way and purpose. There's not one way for it to get done. There's not one story. There's not one thing that's better than the other. You can get into this, oh, okay, this person's publishing this, or they're starting this nonprofit, or they're doing this, and what am I doing? Am I not doing enough? Be true to who you are in your path and your calling, and whatever you feel like with the capacity that you can do, be true to that. And that's not a cop out as to say, whatever you do, but it's more so to say, be accountable to what you plan to do and what you can do. And once you've done that and you've done your best and you've tried, live with those results. That is not anything to hang your head down on. You've done your best, you've tried, you've put in the work, and then life happens. But that principle will take you far in life. So I would encourage you. That would be my last encouragement.
I love that. I'm gonna give you the mic back here in a second, but I just want to, echo that. I think it's fascinating how you hear that all the time, right? Like everybody has their own path, but I feel like people still try to, even though people know that, people still try to get on the path that everybody else is on. You know, like I know I got my own path, but let me try to do it the way they're doing it. Like, but you're absolutely right, and it's like the older I get, the more I realize how true that is. When you're young, you don't really get it because you just haven't lived long enough. You just can't see it, see down the line that far. But then the older you get, you're like, wow, like my path really did work out. It was a little bit different, or this person's path was a little bit different, and everybody's path really, like legit, really is going to be different. So I just think that's awesome feedback. So let's do this, listeners. Two things. Number one, hey, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done it, hit that subscribe button. Right, we're on YouTube. Watch us on YouTube. Some of you guys might be listening, but check us out on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Help us get our subs up so we can keep on making more and more of these podcast episodes for you guys and other content too we got going on. So that's number one. And I always gotta subscribe and two things. All right, now I'm going to hand the mic back to you, Dr. Darnell Gordon. I'm just going to invite you to end the show by saying, my name is Dr. Darnell Gordon, and I am a Black man in a white coat.
All right. My name is Darnell Gordon, and I am a Black man in a white coat.
Really got them Rex, ain't playing around. When I go get it, stop playing around. Really got them Rex, ain't playing around. Black man, white coat, shit, we up right now, yeah. You gotta set you a goal. You gotta accomplish your